Hi, this is Luca,
And this is Laura,
and this is the CareerBee Talks podcast.
where we bring you the latest insights from the world of recruiting.
From both sides, the candidate's perspective and the company's perspective.
Let's jump right in. So happy to have Maria Fernandez today here with us. Maria is the founder of the Eltern Hub, which translates into the Family Hub. And as the name says, practically it focuses or is the one-stop hub for all expat families who moved to Germany, relocated to Germany, and are now trying to build a life here, which of course with a family is much different than if you just come on your own. So I think this is an essential topic to talk about because we know that a lot of talents who move to Germany bring their families with them. And in the Eltern Hub, you will find a lot of things to really be helpful for you. On the one hand, the community, but then also consultation sessions. I have found something about cohort groups, seminars. We will talk about all that in just a second, but also very important. And this is why companies should also listen to this. And with the Eltern Hub, there's also a place to really talk about candidate retention, right? If you come with your family, staying here also means that your family needs to feel, welcome and feel very well living in Germany. So candidate retention, sorry, not too many recruiting words, candidate retention. That's what we will also talk about. And also here, Maria has something wonderful to offer to companies. So let's get into it. Maria, I have a lot of questions for you. I hope you're ready. How are you feeling today? Perfect. Sounds good. So I know you moved to Germany from the US. And that's why my first question really is, can you tell us a little bit about your migration experience, your relocation experience? And feel free to add any challenges, learnings that you've had along the way.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Laura, and the CareerBee team for having me. I've been following along your journey with CareerBee, so I find it super inspiring. Obviously, our work is really aligned in just supporting companies in bringing in and retaining their international talent. So I'm super grateful to be here. Like you already said, which you did such a great introduction already of the Eltern Hub. Yeah, I'm Maria Fernandez. I am originally from Dominican Republic, born and raised, and then grew up then in the United States. So I already did one relocation in my life before. So that was from Dominican Republic to the US. And now I've been in Germany for the last 5.5 years, which is pretty incredible to think about. I thought I was only coming to Germany for 1 year, and now I'm still here 5 years later. Yeah, and starting now my own business. So I moved here for love. I'm sure many other expats can also empathize with the reason to move. So, but I have grown to become really independent, living abroad here in Germany and learning the language and had some work experience here. And now I'm building my business. I'm building the Elton.
That is so awesome. What would you say, because I know it from my own experience moving to Germany, what was for you one cultural shock you maybe had when moving to Germany? I remember mine very, very, very in detail.
Um, it brings a funny memory, actually. I remember, well, funny, and also at that moment it was quite stressful. I was sitting in my A1 course at Goethe Institute, my 8-1 German language course. So I came to Germany with zero knowledge of German. I knew maybe like Guten Tag, Ich heiße Maria, but really not a lot. And I remember sitting in my A1 class on my first day. I was taking an intensive course. It was like really my full-time job over at Goethe Institute. And when the teacher started the lesson, and I quickly realized she was not going to translate any of the material, we were learning German in German and learning German grammar in German. I had an initial shock where I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe I am now in a different country trying to learn a new language as an adult. And I think for me, that was a really big shock and a realization of, I'm in a different place.
Oh my God, yeah, like learning the new language, and especially like also hearing it the whole time, feeling like I don't understand what people are saying or not being able to read, what, the different signs on the street mean. I think that's such a cultural shock. So awesome you went through it despite these challenges. I
I'm
always,
still going. I should put a little asterisk on that. You never really finished learning German,
true,
so still on that
true.
journey.
Absolutely. Maybe just to add on, my first big culture shock beyond, of course, language, was going to do some groceries at Aldi store. This grocery store here in Germany. Oh my God, I was in shock. It's super fast. You have to be super organized. You need to practically catch all the groceries that are flying your way. It was a crazy experience. Like I will never forget that. But yeah, funny.
Late.
Many funny things of moving to Germany now. Of course, you also have a family. So maybe you can tell us a little bit how your experience here in Germany and also, building a family here in Germany inspired you to found the Eltern Hub. And then also feel free to tell us a little bit about what you do at the Eltern Hub.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, so the Eltern Hub is really has become the one-stop hub for international families here in Germany, offering knowledge, community, and confidence for really thriving in parenthood abroad. And I started it from really a place of need. So when I had my daughter back in 2022, even though I already spoke German at that point a bit, I knew my way around Frankfurt, which is where I'm based. When I found myself as the first one in my friend group having a child abroad, I didn't know a lot of other expat parents. I quickly realized how challenging it was to really navigate this next chapter of my life abroad on my own, well, with my partner, of course. There wasn't a lot of resources available back in that time in English that I found specifically for Frankfurt. So I thought, hey, what a great way for me to maybe start sharing my story and start documenting my experience. So I started a blog. So the Eltern Hub was really a blog back then. So the same year my daughter was born, so was the Eltern Hub. And I was blogging about once a week, just sharing little tips and stories about my experience of being an expat mom, being a woman of color, raising a child abroad, raising a multicultural child abroad, and things of that topic. So I really started it for fun. I wanted to try blogging. I love writing. I wanted to somehow capture my story here in Germany. And as I was posting, engaging more on social media, I started getting a lot of feedback from people, families who were like, oh my God, I wish I had this back when I was pregnant or I was moving abroad with my children. Thanks so much for covering this story and things like that. And then yeah, from one day to the next, I landed my first paid clients with the Eltern Hub. So, and while it was just a blog, I gained those clients. So I immediately saw, okay, there is clearly a need for this. Families who really need this, and I decided to then really focus on it full time. So that was already back in. I started the blog last year, and then in November it really became a business. And here I am today, still supporting a lot of families abroad.
That is such a success story. And I mean, in the name of all the families, thank you so much for doing this because I don't have a family yet, but I can totally relate to how challenging that must feel like. Like currently I am traveling. I'm currently, in my Airbnb, which you can probably see from the background, but like just thinking about like in this new country, like having a family, I would have been so overwhelmed. So happy to have people that really guide you through the process. So on that point, thank you so much. But now I'm very curious to really hear what are the most common questions that you get from, expat families. And one of the things that I would guess based on, the talent base I work with would be something about, what is the best city in Germany to really settle in first if you have a family, maybe don't speak German fluently yet. Are there any recommendations?
Yeah, so I mean, you nailed it with that question of like, what is the best city to live in? Actually, one of my first clients that I got last year was a really sweet family relocating from Ecuador to Germany. The husband found a really, really great job here in the tech field, and he had the option of choosing between, I remember it was Hamburg, Munich, Berlin, Frankfurt. So he had a lot of options for which city he can pick. So
Wow.
in one of our first consultations, we really dive into the differences of the cities, what they each have to offer, the friendliness for expats living in those cities. So that is definitely one of the big questions that I get from that audience of the families who are relocating abroad. Other questions are, because they're of course moving with children, is education. Education is such a huge topic of, how does the education system work in Germany? What are the options? What's it like in international schools versus German schools, because those are also following quite different structures and curriculums and paths. So we talk a lot about the education system. Also, support for the accompanying spouse. And I actually will be doing a webinar on this in a few weeks with a relocation company. But oftentimes we forget about the accompanying spouse who's relocating abroad with their partner and the children here to Germany. So I get families asking me, hey, for the partner who doesn't have a job maybe yet, or is looking for community out in Germany, how can they go about finding those resources? How do they start with the job search abroad? Language learning, of course, always a hot topic of, when to start learning German, which the answer to that is obviously is never early enough to start. And I always advise families to start learning the language before they actually move. But we talk a lot about that too, of just language learning and just overall, cost of living, safety, and just overall well-being.
Would you say that, like, because I know you also offer consultations, is there general tips that would apply to everyone who's currently in the process, or do you think it's very specific to each person, so it's not like general tips that you could give?
General tips, you mean for families who are moving abroad?
Yeah, for families who are moving abroad, like anything we can give them along in this podcast, or is it like too difficult to say specific things because maybe for each family something different will apply, right? That could also be the case.
No, I think both things definitely apply. I think there's some general tips that I always offer to families, and then of course during my one-on-one consultations I take those each family situation, and then I offer tailor support and advice based on their situation, of course. But I think always the biggest things is, start learning the language before you move. I think even when you're moving to an international city like Frankfurt, like Berlin, like Hamburg, where you can probably get away without the German language, I think it is such an important part of the whole integration experience to know the language and also to feel confident as a parent, as abroad, as an individual abroad. So I always say that's one of the big tips. Another thing is start connecting already with community groups online before you move. I think oftentimes as expats, we have this perception of, once we move abroad, then we'll put ourselves out there and we'll go to the networking events. And I think that's great, but you can already start doing that even before you move. So I know when I was expecting my first child here, I, went onto the Facebook groups and I tried to connect with, fellow expat moms and parents. So I think starting to build that community and connecting with people who are already in Germany before you move can be such a big help. And also ask your employers, see what your employers might offer to help support you and your family. And I know we'll talk about this topic a little bit more. I think there's definitely ways companies can improve to support their international talent and their families who are relocating abroad. But I think, going to your HR team, going to your global mobility team who's helping you with the move and ask them, hey, what resources do you have available for me and my family as we think about relocating?
Oh yeah, I'm so excited to actually deep dive into this part now that we brought up, the company side of it, because I think there's so much that you can ask also an employer about, but then also as a company that you should maybe already be providing or thinking about adding it to your repertoire. But let us start differently, because I really want to ask you, based on, these many discussions and, the big network you also have to expat families, what would you say are key mistakes that you've seen employers doing when, hiring international people who also bring their family along?
Yeah, so I would say, as I have supported already a few families along their relocation, I always find their feedback quite interesting. And, I always ask them, hey, how did you come across the Eltern Hub? Or like, what convinced you to kind of reach out to me and get that support from me? And what I'm constantly hearing, sadly enough for the family side, is that they're not getting the support that they need kind of beyond relocation logistics from their company. So I think, companies, especially the large international companies who are relocating thousands of employees every year, I think they have their systems in place set up. They have their global mobility programs. They have a list that they check off of, like, okay, here are the paperwork and things that we need to do to relocate our talent. But I think in having that, they might miss out on a lot of opportunities to support their international employees and their families who are moving abroad. So I think companies, I've noticed from the clients I work with, is that the companies are too focused on just the relocation logistics. Things that are important: visa, paperwork, perhaps finding housing. Not every company, of course, offers that support. But I think companies need to start thinking about what support can they offer their international employees beyond relocation logistics. And a lot of the support that I also noticed was it was mostly given to just the employee themselves who are relocating, but not so much the spouse and the family. And I think if companies understand that if they support not only the employees, but also their families who are relocating abroad, they have better chances of actually retaining those employees later on.
I find this so interesting because, of course, I mean, as a company, I also understand this would not be the first thing you think about, right? You think about the one person that you're hiring, the one, relocation, be it from the logistic perspective, but then also, integration into the company and so on. But yeah, you never think about the impact of the personal life, which probably has much more weight at the end as well, because you might love the job, you might love living in Germany, but then if your family doesn't love it, what are the chances of you staying, right? So I think this is such an interesting point to bring up, and I love that. So maybe now we can go into some tips or ideas that you have for companies that they could be doing.
Yeah, and actually, before we dive into that, I actually have a funny story that goes with that. Just reminded me what you just said. One of the first families that I supported was an awesome family moving abroad from the U.S. to Germany. So it was great. I could connect with them, a fellow American family, and this mom had reached out to me just via social media, explaining her situation, that they're moving abroad, that she was feeling quite stressed out about the situation and really needed support. Again, most of the support was given to the husband, just with relocation logistics, but not a lot of support extended then to the family. So I did a consultation with this family, just guiding the partner, guiding this mom through the move, connecting her with the right resources, giving her insights on the schooling system and everything. And one of the good things she brought up, she had been in Germany at that point already for 2 weeks. So I was one of the first people she met in Germany. And she told me, yeah, my husband's company already asked him if he can extend his contract. The partner had a contract for 2 years at this company, and they already wanted to keep him very quickly because they realized, he was really good for the job. So they wanted to keep him. Right. And he said, well, I got to talk to my wife. I got to talk to my family and see, we just moved to Germany. And I remember talking to the wife about that. And she's like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is the place for us. She started off a little bit on a rough foot because, again, it was a big transition and they didn't have a lot of support until we had this consultation. So I think that was already a prime example of a family who just moved. You have this highly skilled employee relocating abroad with his family, and the company already wants to keep him, but who they really need to convince is the rest of the family.
Right.
Wife, to be honest.
I love that story. Scenario. Yeah. No, I absolutely love this story. I think it brings it puts a light on a topic that is maybe not discussed enough when we talk about relocation per se. So great story. Thank you so much for sharing this. And companies, listen out to this. Very important tips now for you. So yeah, I'm thinking I also came up with one story that I want to share. But first of all, I'm very curious to hear about your tips and ideas you have for companies. And then I can share this one story of something that one company did as well.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear the story from you. So I think in tips, first and foremost, I think companies don't have to feel like they have to reinvent the wheel in this sense. You don't have to come up with some huge strategy for, supporting your international talent and trying to retain them. I think it all starts with the talent you already have and assessing that. So, I like to call these kind of like the 3 phases. The first phase is reassess. Talk to your employees who moved abroad, and create focus groups and gather information on how they're feeling. How was the relocation experience for them? How do they feel the support? in what ways can we improve? So talk to your employees, talk to the people. They have the information, right? Then the next phase is kind of the ideation phase. So collect that data that you just got from your employees in those focus groups and come up with ideas, ways that you can better your relocation program, ways that you can better your retention strategies. So really take into account the things that were shared to you by your employees, because they are the number one source for you to kind of better those processes. And then the last step is really this implementation phase. So implement. You've spoken to the employees. You've come up with ideas and strategies for how you can better these processes, and now implement it. Test it out, run a pilot program, add extra support along the relocation journey, come up with new strategies for retaining top talent, and then kind of just keep circulating through that. I think this idea of retaining talent and improving your global mobility programs, it's not a thing that you just take one idea, you apply it, and then that's it. You have to keep coming back to it, because people have new needs. You figure out new things. Your organization might grow, so there's different needs from your employees. So I think going through these steps and going through these phases can be extremely helpful for global companies.
Oh, yeah. I think you really brought it to the point, right? So if we really look into the essence of how to do it right, this is so many good tips that companies can take away. So thank you already for sharing. The story I wanted to share is more, let's call it superficial things that you could do, because it's not like, the groundbreaking things, but I felt that they could add on support for families. And so two things actually came up. One, and I really like this initiative, it's practically an international community within the company, but it was not only for international, it was like everyone who wanted to, grow their network, get in touch with people from also different cultures, different backgrounds. And it was fully like employee organized, so there was nothing paid or anyone who had a specific role. And what we did back then, because I was also part of that group, I think it was every month or every second month, we organized like one specific event that was sponsored by the company actually, and you were allowed to bring your family along as well. So, for example, once we had like this, I don't know, dinner in a tram, and then, all the families were able to come along. Of course, spots were like reserved to a specific amount, but everyone had the chance to participate if they were fast. And I really liked this because it gave you the chance, also someone who's not working in a company, to connect more with the people that your, spouse or partner or whoever is working with. And I feel that also create some type of, I feel more comfortable. I know with whom or he or she's like working with, and I feel that was really, really cool. And it's a very, small initiative. I mean, you have to invest a little bit, but not too much, and you already have something that can add a little bit of value. And another thing that I really liked, this is another example, it was like people who came along, and then the partner was also there, and they really asked also the person, like, is this the right city for you guys, or do you want to move to another city? So they really provided some, remote options for the person with a partner to be able to choose, because you just mentioned, right, different cities, different advantages, but also some disadvantages. And then maybe like allowing the person, once you already brought them here, to find some flexibility if that's possible in the job. I think that also really gave a good, image, because you were listening. At least you were trying to find a solution with this employee. They actually ended up moving to another city, and now the person is here already for, I think, 5 or 6 years already. So it's like a good success story also for the company.
Yeah. And that's a great example too of companies listening to the needs of their international talent, and working with them and being flexible. And luckily now with remote work, and companies being more flexible to that, then I think it makes it also easier for employees once they're here to just kind of bop around to different cities and try something else. But love this idea actually of, inviting the families, because usually what I've seen from clients is that the employees, they have their community, they have their built-in community when they come through the employer and their colleagues, but then the families might experience a little bit of alienation, or it takes them some time to really, find their own niche, find their own roots. I think that's such a great way to kind of integrate the families in a way that, again, it's not something that's out of this world. It's not like this revolutionary idea. It's actually quite simple. Companies just actually have to follow suit.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. So I am very curious now to hear what it would be like to, as a company, work with you, because I'm also thinking like one great idea as well is to, work with experts in this area who can help you as a company to, first of all, create better internal processes, but then also maybe with you, because you also have this other perspective of working with the family, so it can also be a great place to put the community of parents, like everyone who moved, and then also like something specific for the employees that are just now relocating to this new company. So curious to hear about your services.
Yeah, so with the Eltern Hub, so I'm kind of serving these different audiences. So on the B2C side, on the individual customer side, I'm working a lot with new expecting parents. So expat parents who are here in Germany, expecting their first children abroad. I offer seminars and one-on-one consultations for those families. Then the other audience I serve are the families relocating abroad to Germany. So some of these scenarios that I've already shared, of families who are relocating, I've offered support for them also through seminars and one-on-one consultations. And then comes the other part of the business, in the way that I'm really looking to grow, that I think I can have the most impact, is through working with companies. So I gave those examples earlier of kind of like the three phases and some tips for the companies. So I work really with companies on like a partnership model basis. So companies can hire me as an integrated kind of member. They can see me of their extended HR team, recruitment team, diversity and equity inclusion, wherever kind of employee retention and global mobility falls. But companies can hire me to come in as an external consultant, and kind of these tips that I already gave of leading the focus groups, implementing new ideas to support their international talent. I can go in and actually do that work myself if they don't have the capacity. Another thing is, if there's a special program or short term project that a company has, let's say, they're planning to relocate, I don't know, 500 employees to Germany in 2025, and they're trying to kind of prepare for that and, figure out the best way to prepare for such a big move, then I can come in also and support them for a short period of time. So that's more of like the short term support, and also through any workshops or events. So if companies are hosting some sort of international career day, or they're even simply welcoming their international talent that's coming here to Germany. So I'm also available for that. So those are the three different ways that I am currently supporting companies.
Perfect. So companies, don't wait any longer. Make sure to reach out right away. No, that's really good and very helpful. I'm certain, like I already can think of many companies where this could have been very useful back in the days and can still be very useful now that they know the service exists. Just to kind of also round this up, because we're talking a lot about the perspective of what can employers do, but very briefly we also mentioned you as this international person who moved to Germany, you should also ask the employer, what is there, like what options, how can you maybe support me as well? And I want to just come back to that in a second, because I feel this is also essential. So if you did this relocation process and you are now working in a company, you feel kind of, you're unsure if you want to stay or not, also talk to the employer first, because I feel that many times this communication never happens because maybe the company doesn't provide this platform. But be the one who reaches out, right? You already made this move, you already went through so much. Don't stop there, because the employer might be more open than you think to maybe work with some external consultants, but then also to provide specific internal I don't know, programs or whatever it is that can then also support you.
Definitely.
So I have one question for you that's a little bit more personal. Why would you recommend people to relocate to Germany with their families? What did you like about your personal move?
Yeah. So again, like I mentioned at the beginning, I moved to Germany for my partner, for my husband, but I'm really staying for my family. I'm staying here for my family's just overall well-being, and of course my career opportunities, and growing the Eltern Hub. But I think there's so many benefits to raising children abroad in Germany. The first one that always pops to my head is safety. I'm coming from the US, so that's the system I have in mind that I often compare it to. So I think safety, healthcare, overall cost of living. I mean, I live in a metropolitan city like Frankfurt, so prices are obviously increasing, and you feel that, but it is still, in comparison, costs us less in general to live here than it does in a big city like Boston or New York, where I've lived before. Yeah, education options, the cost of education. I think that's has been my biggest shocker. I have a little one that's in Kita right now, so in nursery school. And when I talk to my friends back home and comparing the cost of nursery school in the US versus here, I am completely shocked at the prices, where it almost feels like parents in the US have to work just to send their kids to nursery school. And that's certainly not been the case for us. So I think just overall family well-being and the parental leave. I mean, that's a huge one. The fact that I was able to have 1 year of paid parental leave. You're protected with your job as well while you're on leave for up to 3 years. So I think Germany really knows how to do things when it comes to taking care of families.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to also, end this interview by putting some light on why you should move to Germany. But we also discussed a lot, how, or the challenges you have, but then also a place where you can reach out to. And then very importantly for companies, some ideas of how you can set up the right processes, or reach out to Maria to also discover what you can do together with her. I will make sure to also leave all your contact information, LinkedIn and the website, of course, in the show notes, so that everyone who's interested in can also, reach out to you. And I only have to say thank you so much. I learned a lot, and I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I really think this makes a big, big difference.
Thank you so much, Laura. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We're super happy to have you here. And if you are a company who's looking for talents to expand their team, make sure to check out our services at CareerBee.de, because there we explain how we help you find top talents much faster. And on the other side, if you're a talent who's currently looking for a job here in Germany, then make sure to also check out our website under careerbee.de/talents, because there you'll discover more about our brand new masterclass, where we really guide you step by step on how to find that dream job of yours. But in either case, you can also just send us a direct email to team@careerbee.de, because we're also super happy to address all your questions directly there. Wishing you a wonderful day.